have a quick preamble because people.
Preamble, people. Preamble. Yes, this is the Seattle Seahawks podcast where we're going to look at the first win of the Mike Macdonald era. But first, a quick preamble where if you don't enjoy this, as ever, there will be timestamps included afterwards, or you can wait 5 minutes and then unmute us again. Griff, I have a preamble topic.
Okay, let's hear it.
Do you want to hear about the worst day of my life?
Yeah, of course I do.
So, I was on a lovely holiday in Italy. Thank you very much. Very nice. And we were staying at a beautiful Airbnb, absolutely stunning. It had a fresco painting, Italian fresco paintings on the ceiling. It was gorgeous, and it had really retro furniture and everything. And there was a really nice glass lamp by the bedside, which at 2:30 a.m. in the morning, I have somehow knocked and smashed on the floor.
Uh-oh.
And that was the start of my day.
And it was sitting there like Chekhov's gun. Did you notice the lamp before you went?
No, totally. I was staring at. I mean, we stayed in this Airbnb a few nights, and I was staring at it the whole time.
Oh no, it was an Airbnb. Breaking shit in an Airbnb is.
I know. Rough. And the person was a really nice host, so I felt bad, and they were very quick at replying about everything. And now they have completely not replied to my last message saying, "Hey, we checked out fine. Really sorry I broke your lamp, and I'd love to pay for a new one. Please get in touch. I want to make this right." And they haven't replied.
Interesting.
So.
Well, you did the right thing with that message, of course. So you did your part here.
Anyway. So the day continues. Then basically it was like a loft, and so the bed was upstairs, up a very tight spiral metal staircase. So walking down this staircase, I managed to slip, nearly break my back on the marble floor, but catch myself in the staircase, and I've really hurt my shoulder.
Oh no!
This was around 9 a.m. on the day.
How badly did you hurt
it? It's fine. Just a bit of a bruise, a bit of a strain. I don't know. If it still hurts in a week, I might go see someone.
Okay.
It'll be fine.
I want you to feel fine, so.
Thanks, man. At least I didn't die. Anyway, then I went to get Italian gelato, and they had a very excellent pink grapefruit flavor.
Mm-hmm.
So I ordered the pink grapefruit flavor again. She even said Pompelmo. Is that it? Rosa? Anyway, she even specified that's what I wanted. I was like, yes. And then she served me, for some reason, lemon gelato, which was fine. But, it wasn't the pink grapefruit.
Right.
Anyway, this is where it gets good. This is where the story gets good.
Okay, because I mean, to me, that's like the climax of the story here. You ordered.
That's the worst thing by far.
You ordered grapefruit. You got lime.
Now the world really starts ramping it up on me.
Okay.
So then we decide to visit the Modern Art Museum where we're staying, just to kill time, because it's what you do on the last day, in a place, etc., etc. And I decide to visit the toilet of the Modern Art Museum, okay, just before we go around it. And I get stuck in the toilet.
Hold on. You get stuck in the toilet?
In the washroom, in the cubicle, yeah.
So you get stuck in the stall.
So what's funny as well is, the stall. So the first stall I went in had a really bad skid mark. It was disgusting. So I was like, okay, I can't go in that. I'm going to go in this other one. So I lock the door, do my thing, right? And then I go out and the door doesn't open.
Oh no! And are you claustrophobic in general?
No, but it was quite hot in there, and we like had our plane to catch in about an hour's time, or like an hour and a half's time. So it was a bit kind of hello.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Right.
so then they had to call. They got their like Italian handyman who was on the site, and
Not just Matty, not just any handyman, an Italian.
Well, they're all Italian there because it was Italy. And then he started like bashing on the door, telling me to twist it. There's a nice lady who spoke English. She was like, "Are you okay in there?" And I was like, "Fine, fine. It's not your fault." And she then was like, we're trying our best to get you out of there. Might be some more time." Then she'd be really calm with me, but then when they were speaking Italian, they were like shouting at one another. It was getting more and more heated and anxious. And then my girlfriend told them that actually, yeah, we do have a plane to catch, so there was a bit of a rush here. So then they had to get an Italian locksmith in. At this point, I've been in there about half an hour, and he came with like a massive hammer, and his big hammer got me out.
My God.
Yeah.
He had to breach. He had to SWAT breach the cubicle, the stall to get you out of
Yeah, and then
how much give is there underneath the door versus above?
No, it was none. It was like a proper door. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, otherwise I'd have just slithered under.
Right. Well, see, I in my mind, I would climb over. I'm a climber. I don't like to.
No, I couldn't.
I know, but
it was a really thick door because obviously, as a man, I'd just break the door down.
Right. Of course.
Anyway. So that was very fun. Now, then what happened, Griff, was we got to the airport on time, and our flight was delayed by 3 hours, 20 minutes.
That's not good. 3 hours and 20 minutes?
Yeah.
So then did you feel bad in retrospect for rushing the Italian handyman? Did you feel like maybe you could have given him more room to breathe, more room to process? Maybe he didn't need to smash it with the hammer. Maybe you could have been more subtle, a little more pragmatic about it.
I did.
So it's not just your day that's ruined. You really ruined
a lot of people's days because I broke the glass lamp as well.
Yeah. This has the makings of like a Chevy Chase on vacation type of.
So then with the airline we're flying with, they offer scratch cards, right? Which go towards a charity, but they say you could become a millionaire. So I was like, I'll buy some scratch cards because my luck is going to turn. And it's also a way to use up the spare euros that we had. But unfortunately, they didn't take card, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then, as I was telling you, yesterday was my grandparents' birthday.
Yeah.
And they had bought everyone a Euro Million scratch card or lottery ticket backdated to the Friday, which was my hell day.
Yeah.
So I was like, this is my chance. I'm going to turn around that day as an omen.
Right.
I wanted to do the lottery on the plane. I couldn't do it because I didn't want to play with card. But this is my opportunity to turn it all around and become a millionaire. And do you think I won?
Do I think you won?
Am I a millionaire now?
I'm going to guess no.
I'm not going to tell you because that would change the perception, I think, of the show.
So no spoilers?
No spoilers.
So you're just going to leave me hanging and the audience hanging, so we don't know if you're...
I'm a secret millionaire. Yeah. Anyway, how was your Friday?
My Friday, I think, was fine. Yeah.
Good.
No, it was good.
Wonderful. Right, should we do our little podcast then?
Yeah. Hit it, Matty.
The Seattle Seahawks have won the first game of the Mike Macdonald era. That makes it the first win of the Mike Macdonald era too. A 26-20 home victory against the Denver Broncos. The box score doesn't really tell the full story. in some ways, this confirmed a lot of what we already knew about this team, what we already thought our priors, which is obviously very important. But also, there was a lot of stuff which was like, what on earth is happening? And in a time where Pete Carroll is now no longer with the team, the Seahawks looked at their circusy best at times in this game. And really, the formula was one we've seen in terms of saving them, in that they ran the ball, they played solid, or to excellent defense, and their QB distributed the ball pretty damn well, and they came out with a one-score victory. But Griff, I don't want to... I mean, Griff, how happy are you with this? Is this a mega win? They got the job done. How excited are you?
It was a good win for Macdonald. They stuck with it throughout the game, right? They showed kind of grit, resolve, what have you. Came out with a victory. And so week one has very little predictive power in a global sense. You can pick apart aspects of the game, which we'll do and everyone will do, and you can see what translates from there, what we think will translate. But it's not enough data. There are way too many high variance factors and all sorts of things going on.
Mm-hmm.
It was the first game for rookie head coach, first game for rookie quarterback on the other side of it. So I think the most important thing from any week one game is just win. It doesn't really matter how you win. It doesn't matter how you got there. Just like whatever happened this game, good or bad, is not necessarily going to relate to how they're going to be good or bad moving forward, just because, again, these games don't predict anything historically, at least in the aggregate, they don't. You're taking in all the week one games and stuff. So you'd still rather get a win though, right? So it counts. So in that sense, it's good. Yeah, like defensively, to me, it confirmed what we think we knew. And then of at least the positive things. And then of the negative things, it didn't sink. It didn't sink whatever. I guess what I'm saying is it didn't undo the chance of them like being better than we thought. I guess what I'm saying, I'm not wording that well at all, but I guess what I'm saying is like defensively, the linebackers played well, the safeties played really well. That is a complicated conversation, though. It's not that straightforward. Yep. A lot flows from the pass rush. Like honestly, it does.
Well, that's like any defense. Like, we've always bemoaned the defenses which have been doing similar things to Seattle in the past, but haven't had a pass rush. And you've chosen to begin with the defense, and I think that's a good topic because ultimately, while the scoreboard shows that Seattle gave up 20 points, that the defense gave up a fourth quarter touchdown and did about as good as they could do, other than that, in the positions the offense put them in.
Right. As a unit, go ahead.
Which we'll get to, but as a unit, Griff, the defense did great, the pass rush was doing well, and they were rotating like 8 guys through on the D line in week one, which a lot of teams aren't able to do that, where there's not that big a drop off in terms of the talent they have, but also, Griff, that there was the blitzing, and I know a lot of people were impressed online at, it's so cool to see different types of blitzes and different guys blitzing and all this type of stuff. So there is a bit of pass rush, there's a bit of scheme.
The front played well enough between execution and scheme that allowed the entire back seven to play downhill all game, especially against an offense that is not really trying to challenge you at the second and third level much. So when I say it confirms what we think we knew, like Baker especially, I mean, I never doubted that about Baker, but like Dodson, Julian Love, Jenkins, Kayvon Wall, all these guys played downhill really well. If you force the offense to play the ball in front of the defense, in front of the coverage, you're playing into their strengths. So we saw what we saw from first level to second level to third level was a positive feedback loop, and that was great. This is ultimately they dominated a bad quarterback he might be better, but for right now he's bad, right? a unit that is less talented than them, and they should. So that's great, and we shouldn't hold that against them. That's something that is in the past when they dominated a bad unit, they go, oh, well, it's a bad unit. If you were to isolate negatives for the sake of being constructive for like future reference.
And what, by the way, Macdonald is going to be focusing on, you'd think, as they head into, the rest of the campaign.
Right. There were opportunities at the second level. If you looked at the heat map, for or the spray chart for Knicks, there were like 7 or 8 misses at the second level, and three maybe 4 of them were really well defended, but the other 4 or 5, it was a combination of either a drop from the receiver, Knicks being off, or pressure killing an otherwise open look. And so when they play a more grown-up quarterback, that's where my mind is going to go. Now, Knicks could have hit those, and it still wouldn't have mattered much. Maybe it would have mattered because the Seahawks offense wasn't consistent, but we're still talking about going from a great defensive day to maybe like a very good one or a good one at worst, right? So, like, I still feel like we're looking at a good defense here. Like, I think we both have predicted an above average defense. I think they'll be in that 10 to 15 range, probably closer to 10, because I think that's what their talent level shows.
No, I'm sorry, but the point you make as well is even strengthened by, yes, the Seahawks defense played well, and they made things tough for Bo Nix, but Bo Nix looked very poor. He dropped back 42 times, which obviously was a bit more than Sean Payton would have wanted when they're heading into this game, but Game State kind of made that the case. But Dink and Dunk doesn't even describe it. He had 3.3 yards. I've just disappeared. Can you still hear me?
I can hear you, yeah. 3.3 yards, you said.
I don't know what the hell has happened to my laptop. Hold on.
Oh, no, okay, the day gets worse.
It's just, no, this was the Friday. You weren't paying attention. Yeah, so 3.3 yards per throw in attempt. Or completion, sorry. And just like a check down merchant, where, and to your point, Griff, it's such an important one, where the pass rush was synced up with the coverage, but also everyone knew that Knicks was going to check it down, and they didn't have to respect any of the deep routes or even the intermediate deep routes, really. And the times he did try throw intermediate routes, which maybe did look open, and I'm not talking about his interception, his interception, which Reed Willen made the play on, which we can rave about. But there's just a lot of over the middle stuff where he just seemed really late, just so late, and just staring at it, and you just can't play like that in the NFL. So that is not a realistic quarterback for what Seattle's going to see. Jacoby Brissett is, I think, maybe slightly underrated. The Patriots have just achieved what many would consider an upset victory over the Cincinnati Bengals. Brissett will actually hit those. He's obviously not a top-tier quarterback, but he will play with more timing and structure, and I think may exploit some of those windows that we're referring to, while also stretching out the zones a bit more. But yeah, Griff, I agree with what you were saying.
Yeah. So really good defenses even take advantage of bad throws, and they took advantage of bad throws. The Woolen interception was insane. That was an insane play. Not open by any stretch. I don't know what Knicks was looking at, but the fact that Woolen can handle those race routes, which is a crossing route from an outside receiver, on a boot especially, all the way across the field is just nuts.
Yeah, and Macdonald said he made a point of essentially saying how he's one of the few people on this planet that can make that play. He also described how Leslie Frazier's been working on ball skills with Woolen in the off-season since June. And what's crazy to me is that's not the first time Woolen's done that. He had the pick against Detroit where Goff threw it actually sooner. He's had a couple of other ones. He even had a drop on a similar type play in the preseason. That's his... If you're thinking of what like the the rare type corners can do and what separates them from like a very good one. That's the type of play you include in the highlight reel because, as Macdonald said, it's rare. Griff, what should also be emphasized is that I don't actually think, while maybe there was the allusion to Bo Nix and also the broadcast tape of Seattle running a lot of different schemes and doing a lot of different things, I think when we watch back the All-22, there's not going to be too much. I think they kept it fairly simple. Now it's a week 1 game plan, which, again, week 1's weird because you're getting up to speed. The starters don't play much in the preseason. But you also don't want to shoot all your bullets. And Devin Witherspoon said after the win today to Greg Bell in the locker room, he mentioned we just played a couple of different plays and we just played it a couple of different ways, which if you take those comments and it's about 8 different calls, it's probably slightly more than that. Spoon may mainly be thinking of nickel stuff, but it didn't seem like Seattle did too much from a play calling standpoint. I think they got different personnel on the field. I want to see the snap counts. I see Jason's comment in the chat there about personnel changes. But there's obviously more to come. So you could also say, Griff, they didn't have to be that good against this opponent. There may still be these problems, but also there's things coming down the line which could be answers. And I think what was encouraging to me is I was concerned that the run defense was going to get gashed,
especially off the first run in the red zone, right?
Yeah, like how the game started. They must have been giving up in the first half about 5 yards to carry. Peyton, loading up, heavy personnel, finding creases. I was super concerned about it. They actually ended up giving, I guess Bo Nix carries don't count. Yeah, they were like 3-point-something yards per carry by the end of the day.
They got better throughout the game, definitely.
They got really good, and I think Macdonald also adjusted well as a play caller. Now, part of that's because Bo Nix is a poor quarterback, and they didn't really have to respect much of what he was doing. So you could load up the box, you could pressure it, the run concepts.
Mm-hmm.
You could play more obvious single high and not have to disguise as a 2-high shell so much and just play an 8-man front with that safety down in the box. But yeah, it was nice to see that adjustment because I was concerned that the run defense would be something which got out of hand, and obviously was something that I'm keen to see them, Macdonald respond to the issues he had last season in the second half.
Agreed. Sorry, I had to let my dog in. I don't think Peyton really got anything going that I thought I take that back. I actually do think that he did get his looks at the second level. So there wasn't a lot of them, though. Seattle tackled really, really well coming downhill. That was a huge part of the minimizing yak was a huge part of winning or losing this game. So, but I was surprised, though, that Peyton spent as much time in the gun as he did. Granted, that's what Bo Nix is familiar with. That's still how Peyton's drop back game is built out of course, right? But he tried to shorten the game. He didn't run a lot of. Well, he actually did end up running a lot of plays, especially in the second half. I thought he would shorten the game and aim for a high yards per carry, essentially game plan, heavy personnel, and then play action off of those looks. And then I thought the shotgun game would be complementary. I know that sounds. That's what I would have. I know that sounds trite, but that's kind of what I would have done if I'm heading into Seattle for week 1. I
was disappointed really with his stuff. Yeah. He seemed he ran out of stuff as it was going on.
And it seemed like he ran out of stuff, and it seemed like he didn't come in with a lot of stuff either.
Right.
So it's kind of strange. Again, we got to see the tape. The tape can often completely undo a Sunday impression for me.
Of course.
it's usually you think it just reinforces or specifies, but it can completely. I've watched games on Sundays and then watched the tape and just had a completely different view of what happened.
Right, which is why we enjoy watching the tape so much.
Right. I will say early on, like with the play action stuff, Dotson had a lot of positive plays where even if the ball isn't coming his way, he did some things well. And then I also noticed something where he didn't do some things so well. But like, again, I don't know. Part of me wonders if it's going to matter even when they play a better quarterback because I don't know. I'm all over the place right now. My thoughts haven't settled on it, but what I can say though is that he is 100% to this point, the Browns preseason game and this game better than what I thought his Buffalo tape showed. He's clearly taking this opportunity to be a full-time player in Seattle.
Yeah.
And he's running with it. And he's definitely better than I thought he was. So
and he even in the press conference he seems quite excited and confident and assured, and it's like he's growing into that role that he is wearing the green dot, right? He's the one who's coordinating it, I believe. So getting the plays in.
I would have thought it would have been Love, but
I really did think that, yeah. So Griff, just to finish up on the defense, we should probably talk about the safety group. Again, we've kind of touched on that, given they made some good tackles coming downhill. The tackles downhill were easier, and they really benefited from how good the pass rush and the pressure was, and also just Bo Nix not being quite limited in this game. But we saw a bit of the vision, although again it was quite basic, wasn't it? I feel like they just played cover 4 or like fire zone in this game.
Who, Joseph or Seattle?
Seattle.
Yeah, there was a lot of quarters. I don't think I noticed much quarter, half. I thought they would maybe try to cloud Cortland Sutton a little bit. But they clearly didn't. So yeah,
it looked like there may have been some. I need to watch it back, but it looked like Spoon might have been moving around the formation a bit. But then I don't know if that was just because he was a nickel or.
I did notice that Jenkins seemed to be the big nickel when they played.
Yeah, which makes sense because he is literally the bigger nickel. He is the tallest and the largest.
Yeah. Then that was an open question for a while, right? Like who's going to be what? Julian Love is the field safety. And
what does that mean?
Excuse me. So if the ball's on the hash or if the ball's not on the hash, it's in the middle. He's going to align to the side with more receivers and or to the field. So he's essentially playing the free safety role that we think of as free safety.
Just a bit more space. And a bit more threats to threaten him, right?
Yeah. So he's going to be the one in space, and then that means Jenkins and Wallace, whoever's out there, will be the boundary guy to the short side of the field, and then obviously the third guy will be playing nickel when they are in 3 nickel stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So,
all right, enough on the defense then. Let's talk about the offense, and I think we kind of have to start with the mess, and then the framing of it gets more positive. So first play, Geno Smith is under intense pressure, gets sacked. That brings up a 2nd and 17. Then on the 2nd and 17, Geno under intense pressure gets hit, tries to throw a deep curl to Lockett, which is way off, like way underthrown, which I think just because how low he got hit, and intercepted by Alex Singleton, the linebacker. Geno's then seen huddling up. Kenneth Walker was asked what Geno said to the offense in the huddle. He said he preached staying together and to stay poised. Macdonald said the sideline felt poised afterwards. Then the Seahawks go 3 and out on punts on offense. They go 4 plays and a punt. They then get a field goal, And then some real kind of fun stuff happens where we didn't actually praise Julian Love's interception. That was a pretty impressive interception, although it's the type of pick every safety should make given how late that ball was thrown by Knicks, but good job. Anyway, that gave the Seahawks the ball at their own 1 yard line. And on a sprint out play, Anthony Bradford is holding. The guy beating him is into the end zone. So that's a safety. Then the Seahawks put together a touchdown drive. You think... Yes, then the Seahawks put together a touchdown drive. So you think, everything's fixed. But then the Broncos have a punt, which puts the ball down at the 1 again after the Seahawks defense get a stop. And there's another safety. This time, the Seahawks tried to run the ball up the gut. And it's a safety, which actually gave Denver a very weird end of half kind of reading with a 13-9 scoreline, which was bizarre. But after that point, Seattle put together touchdown, field goal, touchdown drive, and then it kind of became an end-of-game situation where they would have liked to run the ball a bit better in those kind of obvious running situations. But they figured it out in the second half. So, Griff, in that first half, we talked about how this was kind of a confirmation of some concerns and also some positives. How worried are you about the offensive line after this game? Are you more worried than you were coming into this?
Yeah, I'm more worried than I am coming into it. Again, week 1 caveats, but they played as bad as some of the worst games as last year. The second half adjustments were good, but like in the second half they played like they should have played in the first half. And improving adjustments is great. Always give a squad credit for when they improve throughout the game. But the first half was like pretty inexcusably bad. Well, I take that back. I don't know if excusable is the right word, but it's understandable to a degree. The O-line talent simply isn't there. It's a little concerning that when you take in the fact that the Broncos pass rush isn't good either, though. So they got dominated by a group that they should have had a fighting chance against. But then a lot of the other things of the offense that, are kind of subjective, but like, sloppy, like misalignments, penalties, not being coordinated. The blocking on the perimeter was bad for the screens. The quote unquote takes no talent stuff that is kind of their mantra. They did not pass those. They did not check off those boxes at all. So, and like when the protection is that bad, you can't run your offense. It changes. If you don't change it, you put the ball in harm's way or you take sacks.
That's the thing as well. Like, you stands out from college. Okay, Grubb did vary the pass pro stuff and he did try and help his O-line out. But like their big plays are 5-man pass pro, lots of people out in the pattern, and downfield shots where you need time and you need O-linemen to be able to live one-on-one. And Seattle was not able to rely on that, Griff. Like they just didn't have it. They may have been testing the waters, but they clearly just didn't have that. And Gino described how they made some run game adjustments based off what they thought Denver would do. But they also decided at halftime to have more of an emphasis on the run game. This was after DK Metcalf's comments in the week saying that this was more of a run-first offense. But we didn't see...
Which I think he was lying, but...
Do you? I really don't.
Really? Then...
Yeah.
I mean, but that doesn't... Isn't them being a run-first offense in complete and total conflict with them having 3 receivers and... it's kind of in conflict with what Gino said. Like, this is a drop-back offense. I think bullshitting.
I think it's the only way that you can make this O-line work and give them something to do. Like, I think you cannot. Now, this is week 1 caveats, and we don't want to overreact. And really, what it comes down to is tendencies and teams just get so dialed in on each other's tendencies, and then it's who breaks tendency
When you
and
have
all
to
that
be able
stuff.
to balance out your formations to an extent.
Right, and where I think that's where I might actually have some concerns about Grubb, in that he will need to work out what games he's going to run a bit more on first down, what games he's going to run a bit more on second down, and then what is his, you can only take so many deep shots in a game. What are his other quick game concepts? Well, because we're going all over the place here, but there's a lot to talk about the offense, because there's loads of good stuff too. And one of the good things was he just spammed mesh, just like against the Titans in the preseason, where
He
they couldn't
loves
stop the
mesh,
mesh
doesn't he?
concept. He
Yeah.
just spammed mesh concepts in this game. It got him the game-sealing catch to Tyler Lockett. What a clutch catch that was! What a clutch guy. He got the closer ball that Mike Macdonald handed out to him, so good for him. Great one-handed catch, which basically sealed the game. But it also got a touchdown to Zach Charbonnet on the I've completely forgot what you call that route. Not it is a wheel, but it's mesh rail. Yeah, on that type of concept. It also got them DK Metcalf on a big third down catch. They probably ran mesh like 6-7 times in this game, and it banged every single time. But like, what else is there? Because we've talked about, and by the way, he dressed up the mesh in so many different ways. Like the Lockett catch came on quads, so 4x1. That's a pretty cool way of doing it. And I imagine if DK had looked 1-on-1, they'd have checked into a different play.
Yeah.
But they had a safety kind of more over the top of him, so they didn't want to take that 1-on-1 for him.
And he also has more than one way, not just formationally, but post snap with the routes. He's more than one way to run meshes.
Right, well. Like the Lockett catch didn't have the running back wheel, whereas the running back wheel obviously happened on the running back wheel catch.
Sometimes that over the ball like sit route, sometimes it keeps going, and you get like a crossing route.
Yeah, sure. So
crossing route.
But for me, it's like, what is there? That's just the fine line of being conceptually honed in the passing game.
Well, so that's the entire conversation with the Grubb offense is, and the Grubb offense at UW was awesome. And there are not concerns adapting it to the NFL, but there are questions that he no doubt will attempt to answer. It's so hard to gauge how he wants to answer those questions, though, with the O-line being as poor as it is. But if you're to characterize the Grubb offense, the Kalen DeBoer offense in general, and I tweeted this, but it's home runs and singles. And in college, when you have the talent advantages that you have, your singles turn into doubles. You get on first and you steal second, right? With a choice route goes for 15 yards a pop. That's not happening in the NFL. Your choice routes go for 7 yards at best. And then your home runs or grand slams, they couldn't hit a single home run today. Maybe one to Tyler if you count, but even that one might even be a double. So the point is,
they tried the home runs to DK, like the deep 1-on-1 balls, and he didn't win, which we've seen before, by the way.
Right, and those are high variance anyway, right? They're going to be,
and they're more high variance in the NFL than they are in college.
So the question is, if this is what the O-line is going to box them into, then they really need to go all out into being a yak-oriented offense, which is what they were the second half of last year. For a reminder, weeks 10 on, they were like the 5th best yak team in the league. The average at the target dropped way down, and the efficiency went up. That's an adaptation, by the way. That's Waldron adapting terrifically to his circumstances, in my view. If you want to argue it should have happened sooner, fine, but that's what happened. The third downs also improved. We should note the third downs in the passing game were really bad this year, or this game as well. But so it's like, if the O-line doesn't box them into that, what do the doubles look like? Because he's going to need to introduce more doubles to this offense. Otherwise, it's going to be the Russell Wilson offense where you're just hitting goes and quick game and choice all and screens, and that's boring. Waldron was able to hit doubles. So, and he was able to turn his singles into doubles after a couple of years of not being able to do that. So again, these are just open questions, but they're the same open questions we had. The second half of this game,
I feel like
was top 10.
Yeah, sorry. I feel like the doubles we saw in this game were very much just the Lockett, like there's Lockett had about, well, let's go to his receiving stat line here. But he had about 3 catches, which were like basically hitches against off coverage.
Yeah.
Which is like a one-on-one outside the numbers kind of iso ball type thing. He finished with 6 catches for 77 yards. Which again was a really nice reminder that Tyler Lockett is a guy who will get a lot of targets, and when Pat Surtain is shadowing DK Metcalf like he did, and Metcalf's not quite getting it done in the one-on-one stuff. And which dog is finding this interesting, I wonder? Brady. Is Brady, do you think, upset about the DK Metcalf not winning against Surtain? I wonder. Anyway.
Brady is pissed that DK didn't get the 10 targets that Hugh Millen demanded he get, and he's pissed that JSN's average target was only 4.
I don't want to call out who it was, but someone was saying how they're so excited because Ryan Grubb said he's going to not throw short of the sticks on 3rd down, and yet most of the 3rd down conversions today were short of the sticks on mesh stuff.
You know what's funny,
and running back swings.
You know what's funny? My mentions are populated with 2 conflicting criticisms of Waldron in 3rd downs. It was,
you need to let it go, Griff.
No. Well, I'm not. I have let it go. You realize
it doesn't sound like it.
People can't prop up Grubb without making comparative statements. Grubb is good in and of himself. Him being good isn't predicated on isn't relative to the predecessor, in my view. But what I was getting all throughout the offseason and stuff was that Waldron would never target past the sticks. Or it was he would, but and then the other one was he couldn't scheme any yak. He was always trying to go too deep with DK. He couldn't scheme any yak, which that's not true either. Just lots of conflicting statements. But yeah, so like you said, it was all short of the sticks and converting with yards after the catch, like you said. But whatever.
Right.
So the whole the whole thing with Waldron is that the criteria over which he is derided, like 80% of it is like false. Like the screen thing, for example. Like, oh, he does too many screens. One, the Seahawks.
Well, like, have you seen JSN's usage today?
That's exactly my point, right? Like but like the screens, for example, it's like Waldron ran too many screens. Okay, the Seahawks ran the 23rd most screens in the league last year. That is not too many by any stretch of the imagination. And then when they did run them, they were the 7th most successful screen team. So not only did they run them well, they also didn't run them enough. Maybe it should be argued they should have ran more of them. I just don't understand it. And then there's this assumption like, oh, Grubb isn't going to run a bunch of screens now. Thank God. He ran twice as many screens at UW as Waldron did at Seattle. So what is the criteria over which we actually hate the old guy versus why we like the new guy? And that screens are just one example. But like there was one for a while there was like Waldron didn't do enough play action. He didn't scheme up enough easy throws. He used more play action than Grubb did. Like,
but Griff, you're acting surprised about this.
But it still permeates. So like, and the point is, by defending Waldron and acknowledging how the O-line affects everything, by defending Waldron, I am tacitly, preemptively defending Grubb. We saw it happen today. Now people were a little sour in the first half, but they were acknowledging the O-line. Like, great, thank God, yeah, acknowledge the O-line because Grubb isn't really doing anything wrong. Like Grubb did nothing wrong the first half, really. I mean, the offense was inoperable. There's nothing to do.
Well, no. Well, you could say he did. You could say he shouldn't have come out throwing the ball because really, ultimately, as McDonald's alluded to, they and other players they decided at halftime, run the ball more because that's what suits your O-line. And what ended up happening, Griff, is they ran the ball to the tune of 146 rushing yards at 4.4 yards per carry average, 2 rushing touchdowns along of 34, which, that includes Geno Smith's numbers. But they still were very effective running the ball, even if you remove Geno from that. And
That
and
Seahawks
their run game looked about as good as it did in the preseason, and about as diverse and powerful and diverse, not just in gap and zone concepts and a blend of that, but
yeah.
also some under center. And then what can you do off that? Well, you can do play action, and we didn't really see much play action hit, but that you would think would be the layer down the line.
Ground and pound, baby. We did see X strike. I have no idea what Grubb calls it, but that dig route off of play action on that 2nd and 12, I think it was, to DK. Picked it up at like 10, 11 yards. That was cool. I mean, Grubb has a lot more offense. I want to see it, but yeah, his front beaters. He caught Denver in some bad fronts, and he just ran counter to the bubble, right?
Yeah, and even from the gun, which was cool.
Yeah, yeah. So that's good, and I really wonder, like during this period, especially like we don't know what's up with George Fant. After the Rams game last year, Waldron totally bottled up the offense because that's all he could do. He didn't want to take sacks. He opened it up in the Bengals game. They threw for 300 yards, but they took a bunch of sacks and then they put the ball in harm's way. So
And
I'm
lost.
curious and lost. So I'm curious for Grubb. Now they moved the ball, but it was just really volatile, right? So I'm curious for Grubb. Does he turtle up? Does he bottle up? Does he just say screw whatever stuff we put on the whiteboard in training camp, and do we just rally around being a heavy run team with play action and then a complementary drop back game instead of basing out of the drop back stuff? Because unless you want to just see JSN catching 5-yard sprint outs and then a bunch of screens to Noah Fant, which looks like they're not blocking them well right now, and then the occasional go ball to DK off of like a 3-step rhythm fade type thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that they need to shorten the game, run the ball right now with the personnel that they have, and that's going to mean your favorite guys aren't going to get your favorite fantasy numbers. But anyway, I don't know.
Well,
But
and it's
then like this could just be week 1 variance and just throw it all out, and start over next week.
As Jen points out in the chat, Coach Mike Macdonald said on Fant's injury, George Fant, the right tackle, which looked bad. It looked like a non-contact type knee just exploding thing. Coach Mike said he had a little knee thing afterwards, and they don't know yet. But if that's the case, Seattle's down to their 3rd-string right tackle. It was interesting somewhat that Stone Forsyth was the guy they elected to use, given McLennan Curtis had been working there. Like, curious. Forsyth obviously struggles with speed to power, and did struggle. And it's kind of infuriating that from week 1 last year to week 1 this year, with Fant as the starter, Seattle had 4 of the 5 guys on their O-line different as starters than they did the previous year. And yet, what has changed? And how aggressive were they really in upgrading that? And yeah, I just think you have to you have to be a bit more balanced with how you call your offense. And I also think there's a lot of week 1 stuff which we can talk about here too, and we shouldn't probably overreact too badly to this because Connor Williams was playing for the first time with these guys and he hadn't played any preseason games, and he's probably pushed to get ready just for week 1. They're facing a new defense. They'd only faced the Browns, whereas before that it was the Chargers and the Titans, who are very similar schematically to Seattle, especially up front and pressure-wise. There's all these things where it could improve a bit, but I also think there may be some limitations to how expansive Grubb can be with his drop back stuff. But yeah, I'm really encouraged about the run game aspect, and it's pleasing to me that while it was difficult and rough, they did overcome some adversity.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of neat, or it's apt that at the end of the game, they were unable to run the ball to finish the game. They were clearly trying to. Like, they know we'll run the ball anyway, and they couldn't do it. So it shows they've got some ways to go still in that aspect. I I found it interesting. McDonald spoke about the wind back C gap type runs, where the tight ends going across the formation of kicking out the end and widening the C gap. That's my favorite run they have. It's so cool how they can put the back behind the QB. This time it's under center, but in the preseason we saw it out of pistol, and it just it creases the C gap in a way that a lot of teams aren't able to do against these types of fronts that defenses are running. So that's pretty downhill, nice and effective.
Also, the other part of the run game, like a kind of a hidden little side plot there, is that Anthony Bradford run blocked really well this game.
Yeah.
And that makes it awkward because I'm afraid that Grubb is going to be really afraid not to have a good run game if he feels like the protection isn't going to let him drop back past the way he wants to. And it's going to be like a self-perpetuating kind of catch-22 where they keep Bradford on the field because they don't want to lose the momentum they have in the run game, but then that continues to reinforce the issues they have in protection. Also, hopefully he just gets better, in protection, but it's kind of an awkward spot to be in because he's really good at run blocking. He honestly was last year. But he's really bad in protection.
Yeah, I think Grubb will have learned a lot about a lot of things. Like, yeah, I'm really interested to see how that shakes out. How what he starts calling and what the future game plans are. But as McDonald summarized afterwards, teams are going to take things away, need to be able to move and shake in game to be able to move the ball on the ground. And on defense, I felt they adapted in the run game issues they were having, the defensive stopping the Denver ground game, and on offense, they did get it together for a bit, and they did start moving the ball. So
yeah,
fair enough. And I'm excited to see the tape for both those aspects of what actually did change.
We should talk third downs as well. So early downs or like third downs passing specifically, and how it's like the exact carbon copy of last year. So early downs throwing the ball, including the first half, the whole game, they were like 9th or 10th throwing the ball in EPA. And then third downs, they were like, I think 20th, 33% conversion rate. And like
4 of 12 third downs converted.
Right. And it's like, no shit, that happens when you can't protect. So again, Grubb has the exact same conundrum on his hands that the last guy did. And, I don't fault Grubb for that. I'm curious to see how he adjusts. We did see an adjustment last year. Again, the first half of the season on third downs with Geno, they were like bottom 3. And then the second half with Geno, they were like 9th or 10th in success rate on third downs. Can Grubb get to that level? I hope so.
But what was interesting about that is that they actually allowed more pressure on the third downs.
Yeah,
the second half of the season.
I just think that the game plan, they hammered it out with the receivers and what they wanted to live in. I mean, again, it was yak-oriented stuff that got them there. Really, screens and ironically, mesh is what they kind of built their mesh, and then like that wide shallow play where you get a
yeah.
And Grubb likes that play. He used that with Penix a lot, so we'll see it. But yeah, Tyler Lockett is their best player on offense.
That's why I tweeted.
Yeah, he's never really stopped being their best receiver.
Now, a lot of people would say that's unfair because he didn't have to face their number one corner in Surtain.
Interesting. That is fair.
Which is a fair point.
Yeah, that is fair. Surtain played a great game. DK's DK's incomplete go ball down the sideline.
Ball in the hands.
I thought he actually adjusted to that quite well. I thought that was good. It was just well defended. I mean, Surtain punched through. But in the past, when DK would adjust to that, like flip his hips midair, he would try to basket catch that. The fact that he tried to pluck it, I think, is a really good sign. And that is a demonstrative of the supposed like DK evolution that he's been having in camp. I'm skeptical of that. I think he's just healthy. We have to remember DK got hurt last year in the middle of the season and was playing through like a broken rib or something. That's in part why he had a career low catch percentage. So like to me, DK is just healthy and he's ready to go. And if as they settle into themselves more, I think he'll be fine. I don't think he's going to get the 10 targets per game. I think we're looking at like an average of 7 or 8 for him. Probably get 130 targets on the year. But yeah, there wasn't a lot over the middle. I know I'm rambling, but I'm just trying to get all my thoughts out. There wasn't a lot over the middle from Grubb.
Other than if you count mesh, but like I think this
right.
is I think this is kind of what I'm curious about is like what is the what is the I mean we spoke about this first, Griff, when it comes to Russell Wilson, right? Because you can only have so many deep shots in a game. Like you can only take so many deep shots. You have to have a fully fleshed out offense. You have to have your intermediate stuff. You have to have your quick game. You have to have your run. Maybe you could add some RPO. Now, where are your targets? How many are going to be, over the middle versus to the numbers? And Russell and the Pete Carroll kind of, and Brian Schottenheimer, the offenses they came up with, they pushed the edges of some of those buckets right to the limit. But you ultimately have to have one of each bucket in your offense. And with Grubb, he has a very small menu of passing game concepts, which is fine. But because it's new, we haven't perhaps seen all of those concepts. Or maybe he's short of one or two. And then it suddenly becomes a problem. But that's stuff we're going to find out. That is stuff we're going to find out. He didn't need it today, ultimately. But he will need it against opponents. Like we saw the snag concept, Griff, where I think Fant had 2 catches on it.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
But that's still outside the number stuff.
Outside, see, his over the middle stuff is just attaching a backside dig to his front side outside the numbers.
Yeah, or just double slants with luck on the backside again.
Which I don't think that had a lot of play this game because they saw so much zone from Joseph. Right?
He did get a bit more the Walker play where it's in the flat. They have double slants on the backside. They have a slot in the running the pivot and the number one running a fade and the running back on a swing, yak type plays. And we should also mention, Griff, I think what stood out to me as well was the tempo. Like there was a clear thing of we need to go up tempo when we've got them in a look we like or we've got a big play. And that's actually what Geno Smith accredited for Charbonnet's touchdown on the wheel route. He said they caught them in personnel they liked, and he thought maybe the corner should have fallen off with the wheel, but he actually chased the shallow in on the mesh crosser. And then they got Singleton matched up with Charbonnet running a wheel, and Singleton obviously was kind of playing more zone technique because they busted it basically. So yeah, the usage of tempo was a thing. It's funny as well because there's so much talk about how much motion he uses. I don't really remember too much motion, like more. Certainly not loads more than what Seattle always did,
I think a lot of their penalties early on, and then
dissuaded them.
Yeah, because they were like the procedural stuff. It's a lot to take on, right? So,
which is so weird because in the preseason, I was like, "Wow, it's so impressive how they're doing, these motions and shifts, and the timing's there, and the procedure's good, and they're not making penalties and mistakes." And yet, come the real action, the same players largely. Like Laviska Shenault are messing it up.
Yeah. Noah Fant, like converting routes, he had that issue last year. And that one end zone throw, clearly Geno was expecting him to break a post, and he kind of broke a corner. So it looked like that was a sight read, depending on what the safety is doing. Stuff like that. So you know how the McDonald's defense is supposed to be simple for the players and complicated for the offense. Simple for the defense, complicated for the offense. On Grubb's side of it, it is complicated for his own players, but the benefit is once you get it all hammered out, you get to reap the rewards of it, right? Right now, though, with the injuries that they have at O-line, I'm actually frankly kind of worried about that. And with he might decide to lean a little bit more into 12 personnel to lean into the run and lean into play action for the
which
reasons we've mentioned before, which is going to
again is
mean more personnel packages is more combinations, more possibilities for guys to mistake and mess up.
well, and that's what Waldron
alignments.
did last year.
Right. He'd be solving the same problems Waldron had.
And with Waldron, my main criticism really was that it looked very disjointed and quite siloed, and that's why really. Right, let's look at some of the comments in the chat. Oh, before that, actually, Macdonald said, Griff, I thought Gino played a heck of a game, just sticking in it, playing on time, executing the game plan. I mean, it's a quarterback-driven league, Griff. Obviously, the Gino pick, you'd like to have that back. He was trying to do what he does, where he stands tall in the pocket and delivers under pressure.
You
got the rewards from that approach later on when he found Charbonnet down the sideline and got whacked. I mean, to be honest, you cannot have your clearly better quarterback on your roster get hit as often as Gino did. Now, I don't have the stats on here right now, but it must have been at least 10 times that Geno Smith was hit in this game.
It was abysmal.
It's just not good enough.
The interception, he got hit right as thrown. Now, I think it was Dagger. He was trying to hit the inbreaker to Tyler. Tyler seemed pretty covered up.
I think it was just a curl.
Was it? Either way, I would have been very interested to see if that ball got completed or not. But it was Connor Williams that gave up the pressure. It was a rough rep for Connor.
Like an early one, getting used to the game.
And like, he hasn't played a lot of football this summer. So, but I trust Williams will be fine. Laken Tomlinson was downright terrible, man. But all in all, for as much as Gino was hit, he did, like you said, he did a really good job managing the pressure. He only ended up taking 2 sacks on like 31 dropbacks. That's like a 6.5% sack percentage. That's even lower than his sack percentage last year, I think. And his sack percentage last year was like top 10, as in like taking the fewest amount of sacks. So all in all, he did well. And like Matty, like you said, and like what Macdonald was saying about him sticking with it, Gino continuing to give the concepts his investment, like his trust, worked out in the end because the dropback game opened up a little bit in the second half. He was able to progress through all the different mesh concepts and hit Tyler on the outside a little bit, and hit the like the fan on the snag, like you said a couple of times.
And just what we're talking about there as well is just throwing short the sticks.
Yeah. He's a pocket quarterback. He found his answers in the scheme relative to what the defense was doing. The Broncos might be a good defense. We have to remember that they started off like historically bad, but from week 6 on last year, they were like the 8th or 9th ranked defense in EPA and DVOA. And it seems like that continued. So, I think Gino played well, all things considered. I don't think they had good red zone success, did they?
Well,
it depends on what was the Charbonnet touchdown. Was that outside the red zone?
They were in the red zone. They were 0 for 1, so it's not really. They didn't get in the red zone that often.
Yeah, that was part of it. Anyway, so week 1 variance ultimately for me. Yep. The defense played well. They played fast. Everything was downhill because of the pass rush in the Broncos' offensive scheme. We obviously want to see them be challenged a little bit more by a better quarterback and see how they handle that. But they still did well overall. So,
and but man, Bo Nix just rough. All right, let's go through some comments. Christopher, good to see you again. Time will heal that, I imagine, or maybe not. Cody's saying very concerned about that offensive line performance. Feel like it really caps their ceiling for the whole season. And I think this is to Griff's point, but like, it's so easy to blame the O-line for things. Like it's there's so many other factors that go into an O-line, and really it's the responsibility of a play caller, as Grubb did in the second half, to adjust to what your O-line's good at and not put them in bad spots. At the same time, as I was saying to Griff's point, last year there's like a cognitive dissonance or sort of a refusal to kind of recognize what the situation was with the O-line from a lot of people. And, kind of just Gino should have just made stuff happen, or he's not like a guy who can improvise and be like a Patrick Mahomes type improviser. It's like, well, no, he's not, but he is a pretty good pocket operator if you give him a pocket. The problem is finding that out, and really, they've chosen to revamp their O-line, albeit on the cheap in a very John Schneider way, and it's looking concerning early on. But Cody, I guess the cope is, as we've said, Connor Williams. It was in his first game, and he's never played with the guys next to him before, and they did put together an okay to good second half. The snail saying that looked like the 92 Seahawks of 3 or 4 quarters. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't alive for that, but I don't know if it'd be nice if they had Cortez Kennedy, although maybe there's a collection of Kennedys. Monjombo, that would be good. And David asking, how did Charles Cross look? I guess that's the positive, Griff. Cross didn't really stand out, so he probably looked fine.
He got bull rushed a couple of times. I don't think he gave up the edge, though. He always is likely to give up. If he gets powered by guys, it's usually early, too, in the game. So it seems like he found his anchor as he went along.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
chat, any more questions, please get them in. And while you're doing that, Griff, has anything changed for you other than your concern growing about the O-line?
No. I mean, I predicted a 28-12 victory. If you take out the if you take out the 2-point conversion or whatever, and the failed 2-point conversion and the safeties, I mean, pretty darn, and like the turnover that led to some points for Denver. I mean, that was pretty close.
I said 31-7, which if you take those out, and
yeah, I think ultimately over the course of 4 quarters they did what they were supposed to do. I feel like this is a team that will really give bad teams a lot of trouble, and even they'll dominate average teams as well. Honestly, I'll just say I don't know how I feel about them playing against other talented teams. I don't know. I think another point we should make, the Seahawks defensive line was really good. Mafe was great.
You have made that point.
Yeah. No. But the point of the Broncos O-line they're not necessarily good.
Derek Hall looks like it's coming on for him. Like the reading that it was a boot and sort of almost 2-gapping, but winning back outside on the tackle, or might have been a tight end. Yeah. But to get the pressure, impressive.
Agreed. But I do want to see the pass rush against a better O-line, though. So.
Yeah, that's really my conclusion of good. Like, could have been a trap game. They overcame it via smart coaching decisions and good execution on both sides of the football. But the reason it could have been a trap game is because they were playing a very poor opponent, who I actually think. I mean, if you're a Denver fan, what hope do you have? Like, you've just seen the guy who's meant to be your. It's
well, the hope is that Nix is just more accurate, because he is more accurate.
He was so. Is he?
Yeah, he is. I mean, he was at Oregon.
He was so late, though, is the problem. Like, right. He was accurate behind the receiver, but I think it was more a timing thing than a. I agree. Or like staring thing. He was so bad.
But like a lot of if I was a Broncos fan, my hope is that Peyton was able to access the second level, and with better protection and better, sharper quarterback play, maybe they have a shot. But like, again, he was a rookie on the road in Seattle, of all places, against a problem front. Like Peyton and Nix and everyone, that offense would look at Seattle's D-line as a problem front. So,
yeah. We've answered some of these questions that guys are saying or asking in the chat, but Jay asking who starts at left guard, and right tackle next week. Well, we've sort of discussed the conundrum between Anthony Bradford versus Christian Haynes, and I do think Haynes, just body type wise, is more of a left guard, and that's probably how they view him long term. Obviously, think about Laken Tomlinson's age as well and his contract length. Right tackle, I mean, I imagine it'll be Stone Forsyth. But like I said, I was slightly surprised he came in. Griff, given this might be the last pod we do until next Sunday, let's just quickly look at the Patriots. Like, I really like how they play defense. In terms of they're very difficult to run the ball on. They get after it. They play they play bare fronts.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Keon White's a cool player. We liked him.
Yeah, Keon had, what did he have today? 2.5 sacks.
Did he?
I think so. Insanely cool player, man. Dude, he's a legit 290. He's 290 pounds. He's not 275. He's not 280. He's 290, big. Moving like that.
But we expected Seattle to be 2-0. Has your thought process on this changed after today? Because obviously the Patriots did upset the Bengals.
I think it'll be close, actually, but I think that they'll squeak it out.
Yeah, I think it's going to be tight.
I still think they win.
I think it will be tight, but I don't know how good the Patriots are, despite what they did today. I think that could be a week 1 thing.
You know what this defensive game reminded me of? It reminded me of the Cardinals game at home last year, where they dominated Josh Dobbs, bad quarterback. He was held to like 4 yards per attempt. Everything was downhill because they boxed in the whole pass offense. The pass rush came alive that game. Jordan Brooks had an amazing game because everything was downhill because there were plays to be made, which is the point here. It's easier. Anyway.
Should also say the Patriots' offensive line looks shaky, so it could just be a game where Seattle's front just takes over again.
Yeah. It's really cool that they have a D-line now that can maybe do that.
Yeah. All right, chat, thank you so much. We'll probably see you next Sunday. We might be able to do some video content in the week. Also, we're going to change the channel name to reflect...
Matty, we forgot one thing.
What?
Can you win the game in the first quarter? Can you win the game in the second quarter?
No, I don't think so. I don't think Denver did.
Can you win the game in the fourth quarter is what is important here.
Absolutely. And Seattle did. So they actually tied it. But anyway. Right. Please do like the video. Subscribe to the channel. Like I said, we'll be changing it to Seattle Overload. That shouldn't be too confusing. Whoever posted my article on Reddit, thank you so much for doing that. Appreciate you. That's the link to it. Someone said, Griff, they didn't know I had a website. Can you believe that?
Oh, really? Read Matty's articles. They're good.
Read Griff's Twitter at CMikeSpinMove.
No, don't do that.
You can follow me at Matty F. Brown. And yeah, we're going to... The podcast, because we've had some people ask about like the audio format, and we appreciate you all watching us on YouTube and our ugly mugs. We've got like an RSS feed thing going on. It should be fixed soon-ish. So just give us a 5-star review, and yeah, hopefully that will be solved for good. We've been doing some things behind the scenes, so yeah. Anyway, thank you everyone. Good Seahawks win. Hopefully, we're trying to be like level-headed and balanced about this, as we always are. But yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed the show. All right, Griff, any closing wisdom?
No.